Welcome to Storytales. Please like this video and subscribe to Storytales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The distribution center smelled like cardboard, dust, and diesel fumes, a scent Robert Ward had long since stopped noticing. His shift ended at 6, same as always, and he walked through the warehouse with his lunch bag tucked under one arm, nodding at the night crew filtering in through the loading bay. The November sky outside was already dark, heavy with clouds that promised rain. Robert climbed into his truck, a 9-year-old Ford with rust spots creeping along the wheel wells. The engine turned over with a reluctant cough. He sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, watching his breath fog in the cold air. The heater would kick in eventually. It always did. Cedar Falls, Wisconsin wasn't a big town. 20 minutes from the warehouse to home if traffic was light, 25 if the train was crossing at Miller Road. Robert preferred the drive. It gave him time to shift gears mentally to prepare for whatever waited at the house. Lately, that meant silence. Lucy had stopped asking about his day months ago. Now when he walked through the door, she barely looked up from her phone. They moved around each other like strangers sharing a waiting room, polite and distant. The only warmth in that house came from Mary, his 7-year-old daughter, who still ran to hug him when he got home, who still told him about her school day in breathless detail while he made dinner. Robert turned onto County Road 14, his headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. The first drops of rain hit the windshield. He turned on the wipers. They scraped across the glass with a rhythmic squeak that needed attention he kept putting off. His phone buzzed in the cup holder. He glanced down at the screen. Lucy, Mom's coming for dinner tomorrow. No question mark. No request. Just a statement. Robert's jaw tightened. Rachel Hale, Lucy's mother, a woman who had made her opinion of him clear from the day they met, who looked at his work-worn hands and second-hand clothes with barely concealed disgust. Every visit was a performance, Rachel presiding over their dinner table like a visiting dignitary inspecting peasant quarters. The rain picked up. Robert turned the wipers to a faster setting. He didn't respond to the text. The road curved ahead, following the tree line. Robert knew this stretch well. He'd driven it 1,000 times. But tonight the rain was coming down harder, bouncing off the pavement in silver needles. The temperature had dropped fast. Black ice weather. He eased off the gas, keeping his speed steady. The truck hit the patch of ice, doing 40. Robert felt the wheels lose traction. That sickening, floating sensation. He turned into the skid, muscle memory from years of Wisconsin winters, but the truck had its own momentum now. The guardrail rushed up fast, metal posts streaking past his peripheral vision. The impact came with a sound like 1,000 tin cans crumpling at once. Robert's seatbelt locked hard across his chest. His ribs screamed. Something hot and sharp stabbed through his left side. The airbag deployed, powder filling the cab, and then everything went still except for the hiss of steam from under the crumpled hood and the steady drum of rain on metal. He sat there, hands still gripping the wheel, trying to breathe. Each inhale felt like broken glass shifting inside his chest. His knee throbbed. When he looked down, it was already swelling against his jeans. Red and blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror. The emergency room at Cedar Falls Memorial was the kind of place that smelled like antiseptic and old coffee, where fluorescent lights hummed overhead and distant intercoms called for doctors Robert would never meet. He lay on a gurney in a curtained bay, stripped to a hospital gown, while a technician with kind eyes positioned an X-ray machine above his torso. Deep breath and hold, she said. Robert tried. The pain stopped him halfway. That's okay. Just relax. The machine clicked. She moved it, adjusted the angle. Click, click. A doctor came in 20 minutes later, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with reading glasses pushed up into her graying hair. She pulled up the images on a computer mounted to a rolling cart. 3 cracked ribs on the left side, she said, pointing at the screen without looking at Robert. Bruised lung, but no puncture. That's the good news. The knee is a grade 2 sprain. You'll need a brace and crutches for at least 6 weeks. When can I go home? We're keeping you overnight for observation. Bruised lung can develop complications. If your breathing stays stable, you can leave tomorrow afternoon. Robert closed his eyes. Tomorrow was Friday. He was supposed to work Saturday and Sunday. Double time on weekends. They needed that money. Can I use my phone? The doctor gestured to the plastic bag with his belongings. Keep it short. You need rest. After she left, Robert dug out his phone. The screen was cracked, but still working. He pulled up his supervisor's number and sent a text explaining what happened, asking about short-term disability. Then he hesitated over Lucy's name in his contacts. He should call her, tell her about the accident. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at him that morning, her eyes sliding past him while she poured coffee. Maybe it was the text about her mother coming to dinner, that casual assumption of control. Robert put the phone down, let her find out her own way. They moved him to a room on the 3rd floor. It was small, the kind of space designed for efficient suffering, a bed with rails, a chair for visitors, a window looking out at the parking lot. Robert lay propped against thin pillows, for line taped to his arm, watching headlights move across wet asphalt below. His ribs hurt when he breathed. His knee throbbed in steady pulses. The pain medication made everything feel wrapped in cotton, distant and slow. He must have dozed off because when he opened his eyes again, someone was standing in the doorway. Rachel Hale. She stood there in a burgundy coat, her silver hair styled in the same severe bob she'd worn for years, her purse clutched in front of her like a shield. The smell of mint gum and cheap floral perfume drifted across the room. She'd always worn too much perfume, as if she could cover up something rotten underneath. Robert's stomach sank. Hello, Robert. Her voice was clipped formal. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her low heels clicking against the linoleum. Rachel. He kept his voice neutral. Where's Lucy? She's with Mary. Someone has to watch the child. Rachel set her purse on the bedside table with a deliberate thud. I told her I'd check on you first. Check on you. Like he was a grocery list item to cross off. Rachel didn't ask if he was in pain. Didn't ask what the doctors said. She stood there looking at him with those cold blue eyes, assessing him the way she always did, finding him wanting. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Robert's chest tightened, and it had nothing to do with his ribs. What's that? Papers. Rachel held the envelope like it was evidence in a trial. I had my attorney draw them up weeks ago. Just needed the right time. She dropped the envelope onto his lap. Robert didn't touch it. He could feel the weight of it resting against his thighs, could see the outline of folded documents inside. Rachel, whatever this is, open it. Her voice had that edge to it, that tone she used when she expected obedience. Robert had heard her use it on waiters, store clerks, anyone she considered beneath her. He'd heard her use it on Lucy 1,000 times. Slowly, moving carefully to avoid jarring his ribs, Robert pulled the documents from the envelope. Legal paper, dense with text. His eyes caught the header, quitclaim deed. His vision narrowed. You want me to sign over the house? It's the sensible thing. Rachel clasped her hands in front of her, prim and certain. You're going to be out of work for months. Maybe longer. That house should be in Lucy's name. For stability. For Mary. Robert set the papers aside, every movement deliberate. That house was mine before I married Lucy. I bought it with money I saved for 8 years. And now you have a family to think about. Rachel stepped closer to the bed. Lucy needs security. Your daughter needs security. What happens if you can't make the mortgage payments? I'll make them. Ow! She gestured at him. At the 4, the monitors, the bandages. You can barely move. You think they're going to keep your job open indefinitely? You're replaceable, Robert. You've always been replaceable. The words landed like slaps. Robert stared at her, at this woman who had spent years making him feel small, who had never bothered to hide her contempt. He thought about all the family dinners where she'd compared him to Lucy's ex-boyfriend, the one who went to law school. All the Christmas mornings where she'd given Lucy expensive gifts and handed him drugstore cologne in a bag. Get out, he said quietly. Rachel's expression didn't change. Sign the papers, Robert. Don't be difficult about this. I said get out. You're being childish. She reached for the papers on his bed, as if she could make him sign by force of will alone. Robert pushed her hand away. It wasn't a hard push, barely a touch, but Rachel's face transformed, her features twisting with something ugly. Don't you dare, she hissed. She jabbed her finger into his left side. right where the ribs were cracked, right where the worst pain lived. Robert gasped. The sound came out louder than he meant, a sharp intake of breath that tore through his throat. White light exploded behind his eyes. His whole body tried to curl away from the pain, but the bed rails trapped him. Stop! The voice was small and high and terrified. Mary. Robert's eyes snapped open. She was standing in the doorway, her pink backpack still on her shoulders, her face pale with fear. She must have come with Rachel. Must have been waiting in the hallway. Leave Daddy alone. Mary screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. A nurse appeared behind Mary, a solid woman in purple scrubs who took one look at the scene and moved fast. Ma'am, step away from the patient. Rachel pulled her hand back, her face flushing red. I was just. You need to leave. Now. The nurse positioned herself between Rachel and the bed, her voice leaving no room for argument. Rachel grabbed her purse, her movements sharp with indignation. This is ridiculous. I'm family. Leave now or I call security. For a moment, Rachel stood there, trembling with rage. Then she turned on her heel and stalked toward the door. She paused next to Mary, leaned down, and whispered something Robert couldn't hear. Mary shrank back. Then Rachel was gone, her heels clicking down the hallway, that awful perfume lingering in the room like evidence. The nurse knelt beside Mary, gentle and calm. Hey, sweetheart, are you okay? Mary nodded, but she was still crying, still clutching her backpack straps like they were the only solid thing in the world. Robert tried to sit up, wincing. Mary, come here. The nurse helped her over to the bed. Mary climbed up carefully, avoiding his injured side, and buried her face against his shoulder. Her whole body shook. It's okay, baby. I'm okay. Robert stroked her hair with his good hand, his own heart hammering. She's gone now. The nurse picked up the manila envelope from where it had fallen on the floor. She looked at Robert, her expression grim. I'm documenting this, she said. What she did. I saw it. Robert met her eyes. Thank you. After she left, he held Mary close and stared at the ceiling, listening to his daughter's breathing slow, feeling her warmth against his uninjured side. Something had changed in that room. Some line had been crossed. Robert had spent years trying to keep the peace, trying to make things work with Lucy, trying to tolerate Rachel's contempt because family was supposed to matter. But they didn't see him as family. They saw him as an obstacle, something to be removed. And now they'd shown their hand in front of witnesses, in front of his daughter. Robert's jaw set hard. They wanted a war. They were going to get one. Lucy arrived 2 hours later. Robert heard her voice in the hallway first, talking to a nurse, asking questions in that distant, distracted tone she used for everything these days. Then she appeared in the doorway, wearing her work clothes from the insurance office, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face carefully blank. Mary had fallen asleep in the chair, curled up under a blanket a nurse had brought. She didn't wake when Lucy walked in. Hey. Lucy stayed near the door, arms crossed over her chest. How are you feeling? Robert studied his wife. They'd been married 9 years. He knew her tells. The way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous. The way her eyes slid left when she was lying. Right now, her eyes were fixed somewhere over his shoulder. Your mother attacked me. Lucy flinched. She said you pushed her. I didn't. Robert, there's a nurse who witnessed the whole thing. She's writing a report. He kept his voice level calm. Your mother came in here with a quitclaim deed. Told me to sign over my house. When I refused, she deliberately jabbed her finger into my broken ribs. Lucy's arms tightened across her chest. She said you were being unreasonable. Did she tell you Mary saw it? That your daughter watched her grandmother hurt me and then screamed for her to stop? For the first time, Lucy looked at Mary sleeping in the chair. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or just discomfort. Mary shouldn't have been there, Lucy said finally. No, she shouldn't have. Robert shifted against the pillows, ignoring the spike of pain in his ribs. Why did you send your mother here? I didn't send her. She offered to check on you, with legal documents to steal my house. Lucy's eyes flashed. It's not stealing. We're married. What's yours is mine. That's not how property law works. You know that. You work in insurance. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. Robert, We need to be practical. You're going to be out of work for months. We have bills, a mortgage, Mary's needs. My mother's just trying to help. By forcing me to give up my home, by making sure Mary has stability." Lucy's voice rose, then dropped again when Mary stirred in her sleep. "You think this is easy for me? Having to worry about money all the time? Having to ask my mother for help? I never asked you to involve her. Someone has to think about the future." Robert stared at his wife, really looked at her. When had she stopped being on his side? When had they become opponents instead of partners? Maybe they always had been, and he'd just been too busy working to notice. "You should have signed," Lucy said quietly. She wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at the floor, her arms still wrapped around herself like armor. "Mom's right. Mary should live with me if you can't work. It makes sense." The words hung in the air between them. Robert felt something cold settle in his chest, something final. "Get out," he whispered. Lucy's head snapped up. "What? Get out?" "Robert, You're trying to steal my house while I'm lying in a hospital bed." His voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. "You sent your mother in here to bully me into signing papers. When that didn't work, she physically hurt me in front of our daughter. And you came in here to tell me I should have just done what she wanted. That's not. Get out of my room, Lucy." She stood there for a long moment, her mouth opening and closing, searching for words that wouldn't come. Finally, she grabbed her purse from where she'd set on the floor. "Fine." She walked to the chair, bent down, and gently shook Mary awake. "Come on, sweetheart. We're going home." Mary rubbed her eyes, confused. "But Daddy needs to rest. Come on." Robert watched his daughter stumble out of the chair, still half asleep, clutching her backpack. She looked back at him with worried eyes. "It's okay, Mary," he said, forcing his voice to stay gentle. "I'll see you soon." Lucy guided her out of the room without another word. Robert lay in the dark afterward, listening to the beep of monitors, the distant voices of nurses at their station, the hum of the hospital settling into night. His marriage was over. He'd known it, in some vague way, for months. But now it was real, solid, undeniable. Lucy had chosen her mother over him. She'd chosen money and property over their partnership, and she was willing to use their daughter as leverage. Robert closed his eyes, his hands curling into fists against the thin blanket. They thought he was weak, thought he'd just roll over and let them take everything. They were wrong. Robert was released on Saturday afternoon with a list of prescriptions, a knee brace, a pair of crutches, and strict instructions to follow up with his doctor in a week. The nurse who'd witnessed Rachel's attack handed him a sealed envelope as he was checking out. "My statement," she said, "in case you need it." Robert tucked it into his jacket pocket. "Thank you. Take care of yourself, Mr. Ward." A friend from work, Tommy Burke, picked him up in a battered pickup that smelled like motor oil and fast food. Tommy was the kind of guy who didn't ask questions, just showed up when you needed him. "Your place?" Tommy asked as Robert climbed slowly into the passenger seat. "Yeah." They drove in comfortable silence. Robert watched the familiar streets of Cedar Falls roll past, his mind working through logistics. He'd called his supervisor from the hospital, got confirmation that short-term disability would kick in after the first week. It wasn't much, but it would cover the mortgage and utilities if he was careful. He'd figure out the rest. Tommy pulled into Robert's driveway 20 minutes later. The house was a small two-story with white siding and a front porch that needed new boards. Robert had bought it for almost nothing 8 years ago, back when the neighborhood was rough. He'd spent weekends fixing it up, learning plumbing and electrical work from YouTube videos, slowly turning it into something worth living in. His home. Robert grabbed his crutches and eased out of the truck. Tommy helped him to the porch, carrying the bag of medications. "You need anything else, man?" "I'm good. Thanks for the ride." Tommy clapped him on the shoulder, careful of the injuries, and headed back to his truck. Robert stood on his porch, keys in hand. He slid the key into the lock. It didn't turn. He tried again, thinking maybe the cold had made the mechanism sticky. Nothing. The key went in, but wouldn't engage. Understanding hit him like a second accident. She'd changed the locks. Robert's vision went red at the edges. He pulled out his phone and called Lucy. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. On the third call, she answered. "What?" Her voice was flat, Hostile. You changed the locks. Yes. That's my house, Lucy. It's our house. And I have Mary with me. She needs stability. Robert's free hand gripped the porch railing. I bought this house 3 years before we got married. You know damn well it's solely in my name. Then get a lawyer. She hung up. Robert stood there, phone pressed to his ear, listening to dead air. His ribs ached. His knee throbbed. The cold was seeping through his jacket. His own wife had locked him out of his own house. While he was in the hospital recovering from an accident, Robert lowered himself carefully onto the porch steps, pulled up the number for the Cedar Falls Sheriff's Department, and made a call. Deputy Harris was a patient man in his early 40s with a graying mustache and eyes that had seen too much human pettiness to be surprised by anything. He arrived 40 minutes later, looked at Robert's documents, deed, mortgage papers, driver's license showing the address, and nodded slowly. Property's in your name. You have every right to access it. He walked to his patrol car and pulled out a toolkit. I can help you enter legally. You might want to consider changing the locks again afterward. Already planning on it. The deputy picked the lock in under 2 minutes. The door swung open. Robert stepped inside his house and immediately knew something was wrong. The living room was half empty. The couch was gone. The coffee table. The TV stand. In the dining room, 3 of the 4 chairs had vanished. Upstairs, Mary's room had been completely cleared out. Her bed, her dresser, her toy chest, the rug shaped like a flower that she loved, all gone. Lucy had stripped the place while he lay in a hospital bed. Robert stood in the empty doorway of his daughter's room, knuckles white on his crutches. Deputy Harris appeared behind him. Jesus. Yeah. You want to file a report? Not yet. Robert's voice was cold, controlled. But I want this documented. Photos, inventory, everything. Smart man. The deputy spent 20 minutes photographing the house, making notes. When he was done, he handed Robert his card. Custody cases get ugly, Harris said quietly. I've seen it before. My advice? Document everything. Get a lawyer. And don't do anything that could be used against you. Robert took the card. Thank you. After the deputy left, Robert locked the door behind him and stood in his half-empty house, breathing carefully around the pain in his chest. This was warfare. Lucy had thrown the first real punch, and she'd done it while he was vulnerable. But she'd made a mistake. She'd done it illegally, provably, with a law enforcement witness. Robert pulled out his phone and started making a list. First, security cameras. He needed eyes on his house, on who came and went, on any attempt to harass or intimidate him. Second, a family law attorney, someone who understood property rights and custody battles. Third, documentation. Every text, every email, every interaction went into a file from now on. Fourth, communication boundaries. Everything in writing. No phone calls, no in-person arguments. Create a paper trail that couldn't be denied later. Robert hobbled to the kitchen and found an old notebook in a drawer. He started writing down everything that had happened in the past 48 hours while it was fresh. Rachel's attack, the nurse's intervention, Lucy's conversation in the hospital, the changed locks, the stripped house. He wrote until his hand cramped, until the pain medication started wearing off and his ribs screamed for rest. Then he went upstairs to his bedroom, the one room Lucy apparently hadn't touched, and carefully lowered himself onto the mattress. Robert stared at the ceiling and thought about his daughter. Mary was caught in the middle of this, scared and confused. He couldn't let this turn into the kind of custody battle that destroyed children. But he also couldn't let Lucy and Rachel take everything. There had to be a way through, a way to protect Mary and still defend what was his. Robert closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. He'd find it. He had to. Monday morning, Robert called a locksmith and had every lock in the house changed. Cost him $200 he couldn't really afford, but it was necessary. The locksmith was gone by noon. At 1 o'clock, installation technician arrived to set up security cameras. Robert had researched systems all day Sunday, finally choosing one that recorded to cloud storage, motion activated, with cameras covering the front door, back door, driveway, and living room. Expecting trouble, the technician asked as he mounted the front door camera, preventing it. By 3 o'clock, the system was live. Robert could check the feeds from his phone, review recordings, get alerts when motion was detected. He felt slightly less exposed. That evening, he sat at his kitchen table with his laptop and started searching for family law attorneys in Cedar Falls. Most of the websites looked the same. Stock photos of smiling lawyers, promises of aggressive representation, consultation fees he couldn't afford. He was about to give up when he found Patricia Vance. Her website was simple, no stock photos. Just a headshot of a woman in her mid-50s with short, gray hair and serious eyes, and a bio that mentioned 20 years of family law experience, including high-conflict custody cases. Her consultation fee was reasonable. Robert sent an email requesting an appointment. She responded within an hour. Wednesday at 10 a.m. Bring all relevant documents. Robert started gathering papers. The hospital incident report, the nurse's statement, photos of his stripped house, the deed to the property, his marriage certificate, financial records. He built a file 2 inches thick. On Tuesday, Lucy texted him. "Lucy, we need to talk about Mary's schedule." Robert didn't respond immediately. He screenshotted the message, saved it to his documentation folder, then replied. "Robert, all communication regarding Mary should be in writing. What specific schedule are you proposing?" "Lucy, I have her for school days. You can have weekends." "Robert, no. I want her home during the week. She goes to Riverside Elementary, which is 6 blocks from here." "Lucy, I already enrolled her at Parkview." Robert's jaw clenched. Parkview was across town, near Rachel's house. "Robert, you changed her school without consulting me?" "Lucy, I'm her mother. I can make these decisions." "Robert, not without my agreement. You can't. This is a conversation for lawyers." "Lucy, fine. My mom says you're being impossible." "Robert, your mother assaulted me in a hospital. I don't care what she says about anything." Lucy didn't respond after that. Robert added the text exchange to his file. Patricia Vance's office was in a converted house on Elm Street, a quiet space with bookshelves full of legal texts and a desk cluttered with case files. She shook Robert's hand with a firm grip and gestured to a chair across from her. "Tell me everything," she said. Robert talked for 40 minutes straight. He laid out the timeline, the hospital incident, Rachel's attack, Lucy's actions, the changed locks, the stripped house, the unilateral school change. He showed her his documentation, every photo, every statement, every text message. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied him. "You've been smart about this," she said. "Documentation, witnesses, keeping communication in writing. That's going to help. Can I take my house?" "Not without a court order, and they won't get one. The house is your separate property, acquired before marriage. Wisconsin law is clear on that." She tapped her pen against the legal pad. "The assault in the hospital is more serious. That's potential criminal charges, civil liability. The changed locks while you were hospitalized could be considered custodial interference. What about Mary? That's the complicated part." Patricia folded her hands on the desk. "Wisconsin presumes joint legal custody in divorces unless there's evidence one parent is unfit. Lucy's unilateral decisions, changing schools, removing all of Mary's belongings from your home, those work against her. But she'll argue you can't care for Mary while you're injured." "I'm healing. Doctor cleared me for light activity." "Get that in writing. We'll need medical documentation that you're capable of caring for a child." Patricia pulled out a blank intake form. "I'm going to file for emergency temporary custody order. We'll request a hearing within 2 weeks, present all of this evidence, and ask the court to establish a formal custody arrangement. What are the chances? Honestly, you're in a strong position. You own the home outright. You have stable employment with disability coverage. You've been Mary's primary caregiver during your marriage." Lucy worked full-time. "I handled school pickups, homework, meals, bedtime." "She knows that. Document it. Photos of you at school events, report cards you signed, medical appointments you attended. Anything that shows you've been an active, engaged parent." Robert nodded. His phone was full of pictures from Mary's school plays, her soccer games, birthday parties he'd organized. Patricia slid a retainer agreement across the desk. "This is going to get expensive. Custody battles always do. But you're fighting for your home and your daughter. That's worth the cost." Robert looked at the numbers on the page. It would drain his savings. put him on a payment plan that would last months. He signed anyway. "One more thing," Patricia said as he was leaving. "The assault. I know the nurse filed a report, but I want you to consider pressing charges against Rachel Hale. Not just for revenge, though that's tempting, but because it establishes a pattern of hostile, aggressive behavior toward you. That matters in custody cases. Won't that make Lucy more defensive? Lucy's already defensive. She locked you out of your house and kidnapped your daughter's belongings. This isn't about being nice anymore, Robert. This is about protecting your rights and your child." Robert thought about Mary's face in the hospital, the terror in her eyes when Rachel attacked him. "I'll do it," he said. The temporary custody hearing was set for November 28th, 2 weeks away. Robert spent those 2 weeks building his case. He went to his doctor, got full medical clearance that he could safely care for a child. He gathered school records showing he'd attended every parent-teacher conference, every school event. He compiled photos spanning 7 years. Mary's first day of kindergarten, family dinners he'd cooked, homework sessions at the kitchen table, bedtime stories. He filed a police report against Rachel for assault. The detective assigned to the case listened to the nurse's statement, reviewed the hospital security footage, and agreed to move forward with charges. Rachel was arrested on a Tuesday morning. Robert knew because Lucy called him, screaming, "You bastard! She's my mother. She assaulted me. You're destroying this family. Your mother did that when she attacked me in front of Mary." Lucy hung up. An hour later, he got a text. "Lucy, you'll regret this. We're going to prove you're unfit. Robert, see you in court." The hearing arrived. Robert sat in the Cedar Falls County Courthouse with Patricia Vance, watching Lucy and her attorney, a slick-looking man named Douglas Brenner, take seats across the aisle. Rachel wasn't there. She was out on bail with a no-contact order. Judge Elizabeth Monroe presided. She was a stern woman in her 60s, known for no-nonsense rulings. Brenner went first, painting Robert as unstable, financially insecure, unable to care for Mary due to his injuries. He submitted medical reports showing the extent of Robert's accident injuries, highlighted his leave from work, suggested the house was unsafe because Robert lived alone. It was all circumstantial nonsense. Patricia dismantled it point by point. She submitted Robert's medical clearance, his financial records showing stable disability income, photos of the house, clean and well-maintained, with Mary's room fully furnished again with items Robert had purchased to replace what Lucy had taken. Then she entered the hospital incident report, the nurse's statement, the police report against Rachel. Finally, Patricia called Robert to testify. He sat in the witness chair, hand on the Bible, and told his story calmly, factually. The accident, the hospital, Rachel's attack, Lucy's changed locks, the stripped house. "Mr. Ward," Judge Monroe interrupted. "Why did your wife change the locks while you were hospitalized?" "I don't know, Your Honor. She never explained." The judge looked at Lucy. "Mrs. Ward, you're not testifying today, but I'm going to ask you directly. Why did you change the locks?" Lucy stood, faltering. I thought he wasn't coming back. He was hospitalized for 2 days. I didn't know how long it would be. Did you communicate with him about this decision?" "No, Your Honor." Judge Monroe made a note. "Sit down, Mrs. Ward." Patricia continued. "Your Honor, we're asking for joint legal custody with primary physical placement with Mr. Ward. Mrs. Ward has engaged in a pattern of hostile, unilateral decision-making that's not in the child's best interests." Brenner objected. "Mrs. Ward has been caring for Mary continuously. Because she took the child from the family home without Robert's knowledge or consent," Patricia cut in. "That's not co-parenting. That's abduction." The judge held up a hand. "I've heard enough. Here's my temporary order. Joint legal custody, with both parents having equal decision-making authority. Physical placement will be split, with Mary spending weekdays with Mr. Ward and weekends with Mrs. Ward. Both parents are ordered to use a co-parenting communication app for all scheduling and decisions. Mrs. Ward will return all of Mary's belongings to the family home within 72 hours. Lucy's face went white. "And let me be clear," Judge Monroe continued, her voice hard. "Any further unilateral decisions, any interference with the other parent's time, Any violations of this order will result in contempt charges and possible modification of custody. Do you both understand? Yes, Your Honor, Robert said. Lucy nodded, speechless. Good. I'm scheduling a final hearing for February 15th. In the meantime, you're both going to coexist civilly for the sake of your daughter. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Robert walked out of the courthouse with Patricia, the cold November air hitting his face. We won, Patricia said. First round. Don't underestimate this, Robert. You just got primary placement. That's huge. Robert looked back at the courthouse steps, where Lucy stood with her attorney, her face twisted with fury. She was talking on her phone, probably to Rachel. This wasn't over. Mary came home on a Sunday evening in early December. Lucy dropped her off without a word, just let her out of the car, and drove away before Robert could even open the front door. He watched his daughter walk up the sidewalk, dragging a small suitcase behind her, her expression guarded and tired. She looked older somehow, less like a child and more like someone who'd learned that adults couldn't be trusted. Hey, baby. Robert held the door open. How was your weekend? Fine. She came inside, shrugged off her coat, left the suitcase by the stairs. You hungry? I made spaghetti. Not really. She went upstairs to her room and closed the door. Robert stood in the entryway, listening to the silence. This was what they'd done to her. Lucy and Rachel, fighting over her like she was property instead of a person. He heated up the spaghetti anyway, put a bowl on the kitchen table, and waited. 20 minutes later, Mary came down. She sat at the table without speaking and ate slowly, her eyes on her food. School tomorrow, Robert said gently. You have everything ready? Yeah. Want to watch a movie after dinner? She shrugged. Robert didn't push. He just sat with her, let the quiet settle, gave her space to process whatever was happening in her head. After dinner, they watched an animated movie about talking animals. Mary curled up next to him on the couch, and by the third act, she was asleep against his shoulder. Robert carried her upstairs, tucked her into bed, and stood in her doorway, watching her breathe. Whatever else happened, he was going to protect this. The routine settled into an uneasy rhythm. Mary spent Monday through Friday with Robert, weekends with Lucy. Transitions happened in the school parking lot. Neutral ground, less chance for conflict. Lucy still glared at him every time, but she followed the court order. Rachel, facing assault charges, stayed away. Robert went back to work in January, his ribs healed enough for light duty. The distribution center put him on inventory management, desk work mostly, until his knee was fully recovered. Money was tight. Legal fees were draining his savings. But he kept the mortgage current, kept food on the table, kept Mary's life as normal as possible. She was doing better, talking more, smiling sometimes. Then, one evening in late January, everything changed. Mary came home from a weekend at Lucy's house quieter than usual. She went straight to her room, didn't want dinner, said she had homework. Robert gave her space. Around 9 o'clock, he knocked on her door. Mary, you okay in there? No answer. He opened the door carefully. She was sitting on her bed, backpack clutched against her chest, tears streaming down her face. Robert's heart clenched. Hey, what's wrong? She shook her head, lips pressed tight. He sat on the edge of her bed, not touching her, giving her room. Talk to me, baby. Whatever it is, we can handle it. I'm not supposed to tell you. Her voice was barely a whisper. Robert's entire body went cold. Did someone hurt you? No, not like that. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. But Grandma was there this weekend. At Mom's apartment. She's not supposed to be. The judge said. I know. Mary's hands twisted in her backpack straps. She came over after Mom picked me up. They thought I was watching TV, but I heard them talking in the kitchen. Robert waited. Grandma told Mom she found someone on Facebook. Someone who knows how to make a parent look unfit. She said they've done it before, helped mothers get full custody. Mary's voice broke. She said they're going to say you're hurting me, that you're not safe. The world tilted. Robert sat very still, processing what he'd just heard. Rachel was planning to fabricate abuse allegations, using Mary as the weapon. Mary, look at me. She raised her eyes. Did anyone tell you to say I hurt you? Grandma said I might have to talk to people. Social workers. She said I should just tell them what she told me to say. Fresh tears spilled over. But I won't, Daddy. I won't lie about you. You never hurt me. Robert pulled her into a gentle hug, his mind racing. This was beyond custody games. This was criminal. False allegations of child abuse could destroy his life, his career, his relationship with his daughter. And Rachel was willing to do it. I need you to tell me exactly what you heard, he said quietly. Every word you remember. Can you do that? Mary nodded against his shoulder. Robert called Patricia Vance from the kitchen while Mary got ready for bed. They're planning to file false abuse allegations, he said without preamble. Patricia swore quietly. You're sure? Mary overheard them. Rachel and Lucy discussing at Lucy's apartment. Rachel's apparently connected with someone on Facebook who specializes in this. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. Possibly conspiracy to obstruct justice. Patricia's voice sharpened. We need Mary's statement documented immediately. Can you bring her to my office tomorrow? She has school. After school, then. 3 o'clock. And Robert? Don't communicate any of this to Lucy yet. If they know we're aware, they might accelerate their timeline. Robert's hands were shaking. What if they file before we can act? Then we respond with everything we have. But I want to get ahead of this. I'm going to contact the prosecutor handling Rachel's assault case. This is escalation. This is witness tampering involving a child. After the call, Robert went upstairs. Mary was in bed, her nightlight casting soft shadows on the walls. Daddy, she said as he sat on the edge of her bed. Are you mad at me? What? No, baby. Never. I should have told you sooner. You told me when you could. That's what matters. He smoothed her hair back from her forehead. Tomorrow after school, we're going to talk to my lawyer. She's going to ask you about what you heard. You just tell her the truth, okay? Exactly what happened. Well, I have to tell a judge. Maybe, but I'll be right there with you. You're safe, Mary. I promise. She held onto his hand. I don't want to see Grandma anymore. You won't have to. Not after this. Patricia's office felt different this time. More serious. A court reporter sat in the corner with a stenography machine, fingers poised. Mary sat in a chair next to Robert, her feet not quite reaching the floor. Patricia pulled her chair around the desk so they could talk face to face. Mary, my name is Patricia. I'm your dad's lawyer. Do you know what that means? You help him. That's right. And right now, I need your help too. I need you to tell me about last weekend at your mom's house. Can you do that? Mary nodded. This machine here, Patricia gestured to the stenographer, is going to write down everything you say. That way we have a record. But you don't need to worry about it. Just talk to me like we're having a conversation. Okay. Tell me what you heard when your grandmother came over. Mary took a breath and started talking. She described the weekend, how Rachel arrived Saturday afternoon, how Mary had been watching cartoons in the living room. The kitchen was connected, no door between them. She could hear every word. What exactly did your grandmother say? Patricia asked gently. She said, Mary's voice wavered. She said she found someone on Facebook, a woman who helps mothers in custody cases. The woman told Grandma she's done this before. Made fathers look bad so mothers could get full custody. Did your grandmother say how they would do that? She said I might have to talk to social workers. That I should say Daddy gets angry and scary. But he's not safe. Mary looked at Robert, her eyes filling with tears. But you're not scary, Daddy. You never are. I know, baby. Robert's throat was tight. Patricia made notes. Did your mom say anything during this conversation? She said. Mary paused, thinking. She said she didn't want to lie. She said it felt wrong. But Grandma told her she was already lying, so she should keep going. That Daddy would take everything if they didn't fight harder. The room was quiet except for the soft clicking of the stenography machine. Is there anything else you remember? Grandma said they needed to move fast. Before the February hearing, she said once the social workers started investigating Daddy, the judge would have to give Mom full custody. Mary wiped her eyes. I got scared. I didn't know what to do. You did exactly the right thing telling your father, Patricia said firmly. You're very brave, Mary. After the statement was complete, after Patricia had walked them through it twice more to make sure every detail was captured, Robert took Mary out for ice cream. She got cookie dough and a waffle cone and sat across from him in the brightly lit shop, looking small and exhausted. Is Grandma going to jail? She asked. I don't know yet. Mom, too. Robert hesitated. How did you explain this to a 7-year-old? That her mother had participated in a plan to destroy her father? Your mom made some bad choices, he said finally. Grown-ups do that sometimes. But whatever happens, you're going to be okay. I'm going to make sure of that. Mary nodded, licking her ice cream cone. Robert watched her and felt something hard settle in his chest. They tried to use his daughter as a weapon. That was unforgivable. Patricia moved fast. Within 48 hours, she'd contacted the prosecutor, submitted Mary's sworn statement, and filed an emergency motion with the court to modify custody and request a full investigation. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Torres, took the case seriously. Conspiracy to file false abuse allegations was a felony. Using a child in the scheme made it worse. On a cold Friday morning, police arrived at Lucy's apartment with a warrant. They seized her phone, her laptop, her tablet. They were looking for Facebook messages, texts, any communication with Rachel about the plan. They found everything. Screenshots of conversations with a woman named Jennifer Hartwell, who ran a private Facebook group called Mother's Rights Network. Messages detailing strategies to build a case against Robert. Suggestions to document concerning behaviors that didn't exist. Advice on how to coach Mary without making it obvious. Lucy had participated in every conversation. When confronted with the evidence, she tried to minimize it. Said she was just venting, just scared, never actually planned to go through with it. But the messages were clear. They'd had a timeline. They'd had a strategy. They'd been 3 days away from filing a CPS report when Mary told Robert what she'd heard. The arrests happened on a Monday. Robert was at work when Patricia called. Rachel Hale was arrested this morning. Charges include conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted custodial interference, making false statements to defraud the court, and child endangerment. Robert sat down at his desk, legs suddenly weak. And Lucy, she was arrested an hour ago. Similar charges, though her attorney is trying to argue she was manipulated by her mother. Patricia's voice was grim. They're both being arraigned tomorrow. The prosecutor is asking for bail conditions that include no contact with you or Mary. What happens now? We wait for the arraignment. Then we prepare for the emergency custody hearing next week. With these charges filed, I'm confident the judge will grant you full custody. After the call, Robert sat in his office, staring at nothing. Lucy was in jail. Rachel was in jail. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt hollow. Mary was with a supervised visit coordinator when the arrest happened, part of the temporary arrangement while the investigation was ongoing. Robert picked her up that evening from the family services building, a cheerful woman handing over Mary's backpack and giving him a sympathetic look. She had a good day, the woman said. We did arts and crafts. Thank you. In the truck, Mary was quiet. Did you have fun with Miss Jessica? Robert asked. It was okay. She looked out the window. Where's Mom? Robert's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd prepared for this question, rehearsed what he'd say. Your mom made some choices that weren't good. She's going to have to deal with the consequences of those choices. Is she in trouble? Yes. Because of me? Robert pulled into a parking lot, put the truck in park, and turned to face his daughter. Mary, listen to me. None of this is your fault. You told the truth. That's all you did. Your mom and your grandmother made their own decisions. You didn't make them do anything. Understand. She nodded, but her eyes were wet. I know this is hard, Robert said gently. I know it's confusing and scary, but you're safe now. And whatever happens next, we're going to get through it together. She unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed across the center console into his arms. Robert held her, staring out at the gray January sky, and made a silent promise. He would protect this child from everything, even from her own mother's consequences. The emergency custody hearing was brief. Judge Monroe reviewed the criminal charges, read Mary's statement, examined the evidence of the conspiracy. Her face was stone. Mrs. Ward, you and your mother attempted to weaponize the family court system. You planned to file false allegations of child abuse against Mr. Ward for the sole purpose of gaining custody and property. You involved your daughter in this scheme. The judge's voice could have cut glass. This court takes child welfare seriously. We also take fraud seriously. The combination is unconscionable. Lucy stood next to her public defender, her face pale and drawn. She'd been released on bail with an ankle monitor. Rachel was still in county jail, bail denied due to her previous assault charge. I'm granting Mr. Ward full legal and physical custody of Mary. Judge Monroe continued. Mrs. Ward, you are granted supervised visitation only 2 hours per week at an approved facility. These visits will continue only if you comply with all court orders and criminal proceedings. Any violation will result in immediate termination of parental rights. Lucy's lawyer started to object. The judge cut him off. Furthermore, Rachel Hale is permanently barred from any contact with the child. No calls, no letters, no third-party messages. If she violates this order, she will face additional criminal charges. The gavel came down. Lucy was crying, silent tears streaming down her face. Robert felt nothing. She tried to destroy him. She tried to use their daughter to do it. There was no forgiveness for that. 6 months passed. Lucy received probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent mark on her record. She attended her supervised visits with Mary at first, awkward hours in a family services office with a social worker taking notes. But over time, the visits became less frequent. Lucy missed sessions, made excuses, eventually stopped scheduling them altogether. Mary stopped asking about her. Rachel went to trial. The evidence was overwhelming. She was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to 18 months in county jail, followed by 3 years probation. Robert testified at her sentencing. Rachel Hale tried to destroy my life, he said, standing at the prosecutor's table. She attacked me in a hospital when I was injured and vulnerable. She conspired to file false abuse allegations against me. She was willing to traumatize my daughter to achieve her goals. She deserves every day of the sentence the court gives her. The judge agreed. Robert walked out of that courthouse and didn't look back. By summer, life had found a new rhythm. Mary thrived. She made honor roll at school, joined a summer soccer league, started talking about her feelings in the counseling sessions Robert had arranged for her. The house was peaceful, just the two of them, building routines, creating memories. Robert got a promotion at work. Better hours, better pay. He put money aside from Mary's college fund. One evening in late July, they sat on the back porch watching fireflies drift across the yard. The house was just a block from a small lake, and they could hear frogs calling from the water. Daddy, Mary said softly. Yeah, baby? Are they gone? Mom and Grandma. Robert looked at his daughter. She was 8 now, taller, her face losing some of its baby roundness. She looked more like him every day. They can't hurt us anymore, he said. Good. She leaned against his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned purple and the stars came out. Robert thought about forgiveness. People said it was healing, that letting go of anger was the path to peace. But he didn't forgive. He didn't forget. What Lucy and Rachel had tried to do, destroying him, manipulating Mary, weaponizing the legal system, that wasn't something you forgave. It was something you survived. And Robert and Mary had survived. That was enough. The past was behind them. The future stretched out, uncertain but theirs to shape. Robert tightened his arm around his daughter and watched the fireflies dance. He'd rebuilt their life with quiet strength, with careful documentation, with ruthless protection of what mattered. No one would take this peace from them. Not anymore.